Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the show with so much to talk about over the next 60 minutes on over 260 affiliates across the United States and Canada. And those of you that may be watching anywhere in the world on the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, we appreciate that as well. Could be listening on the podcast, too. Lots of ways to consume this show. We're bringing them all to you. We got a lot to get to, as I said. Sam Yarnell will be here. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs coming up in about 10 minutes. Patrick McEnroe, part of the show today from ESPN, also the tennis commentator over at TNT, where they'll have the French Open coming up in a couple of weeks from Roland Garros. A lot to talk about with him as it relates to an interesting column op-ed he wrote for the Wall Street Journal about the state of NIL, tennis, international players, the influx of them that we've seen over the last couple of decades in collegiate tennis. We'll talk about that some. Also, this potential boycott of the French Open with some of the top players in the world talking about that. We got the Stanley Cup playoffs to get into and a whole bunch more. But we start things out, as we always do, on this Thursday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story today, something a little different, and it's presented by our friends at Colossus Fantasy. If you haven't downloaded this app yet, what are you waiting for? Pick'em games, peer-to-peer. It is fantastic daily fantasy done right. And all you got to do right now is use my promo code SportsWrap when you sign up with that first deposit. Get yourself a $40 bonus on a $10 deposit. It's $50 just for putting in $10. Or an $80 bonus on a $20 deposit. So you'll have $100 just for putting $20 in. What are you waiting for? Download the Colossus Fantasy app today and start winning. Again, use my promo code SportsWrap when you sign up on that first deposit. Okay. So anybody who's been following this World Cup North America story by now knows that there's a lot of angst, a lot of acrimony, if you will, about ticket prices. And I've always taken the side of all these ticket prices are way too expensive. And Gianni Infantino, who's the president of FIFA, made some comments yesterday talking about the fact that, look, these ticket prices are just lining up with the U.S. market price. This is what people will pay. This is what we think people are willing to pay for tickets. And on the surface, people will look at that comment, say it's completely tone deaf. You might be watching this at home, wherever you're watching, whether it's in the DMV, watching us on Masson, in Phoenix, on Arizona Family Sports, in Pittsburgh, on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, wherever you might be watching this show, you might look at that comment from Gianni Infantino and say, this is totally tone deaf. What is this guy talking about? Gas is on average about $5 a gallon. I mean, people are losing jobs. AI is taking my job away. All these different things. I'm going to tell you something today that is going to shock you, coming from me. And it's only when you take a step back and actually look at the data that you're going to realize that what I'm about to say, while shocking, is true. Gianni Infantino is right. They should, as a business, from a business standpoint, they are absolutely right about ticket prices. They are 100% right about this being the fair market price for these World Cup tickets. I want you to do something. I want you to go watch any sporting event in California these days. Go watch the Dodgers. Go watch the Padres. Heck, even go watch the Angels, who have been terrible for the last 2 decades. Go look at ticket prices. Go see how much they're charging for those expensive seats on the net. Now you got to look through a net to watch baseball on the dugout. Go and look at how much ticket prices are for those games. Ain't no Shohei Ohtani in Anaheim playing for the Angels anymore. Go look at Dodger ticket prices. Go look at ticket prices for the Padres. Every game for the Padres and Dodgers is sold out. In fact, just look at California, all the way up to Sacramento where the Kings play. One of the worst teams in basketball. Go look at percentage of capacity filled up every night for Sacramento Kings games. Go do it. Anaheim Ducks, San Jose Sharks, the San Francisco Giants, who haven't won anything in a decade. Go and look at the ticket prices. People are still paying the freight. People are still going to the games, no matter how expensive the tickets are. Go look at the Knicks. Go look at the Brooklyn Nets, who have been terrible for years. Go look at Kansas City, where the Chiefs play. Go look at the Rams. Go look at the Chargers. Go look at the Raiders. Here in the city I call home, Las Vegas, who've been an afterthought around the NFL unless you want to laugh at them. Go and look at the Raiders. Stadium's mostly full. The Cardinals of football. Go look. Stadiums are full. And these tickets aren't cheap. Even with tickets being less at WrestleMania this year, they still filled up the place for 2 nights. As much as people complained about the ticket prices, somebody still went. Go look at your favorite concerts. Tickets scooped up in seconds when they go on sale. For as much as we talk about the economy and affordability and all of these different things, which, by the way, are all valid points, people still choose to spend their money where they want to spend their money. And that means outrageous ticket prices for concerts, entertainment, sports events. They're still going. Broadway shows filled up. The best shows are still sold out all the time. Go try to get a ticket. Gianni Infantino isn't a popular man in the sports world these days for what he's done with the World Cup and how he's managing. But Gianni Infantino isn't wrong. Because as long as you're willing to pay to go see the sucky Sacramento Kings at outrageous ticket prices for those front court, those courtside seats, there's going to be a Gianni Infantino who thinks he can get all of that and more for the World Cup this year in North America. And that's your big story. We're coming back and talking about the NBA playoffs. Sam Yarnell will be here to help me with that next. I've had my say in the big story on this Thursday edition of SportsWrap. Time to say hello to Sam Yarnell for the first time today. NBA playoffs continue. One competitive game, one non-competitive game on Wednesday night. Start with the Knicks, who have won 5 straight playoff games. Had to take on the 76ers without Joel Embiid last night, who was a scratch. We learned right after we finished putting yesterday's show to bed that Embiid would not be playing in this game as he's dealing with injuries. And, look, it's a constant story. Fact of the matter is, and it's kind of interesting, at the end of the day, Sam, the Sixers were actually more competitive in Game 2 than they were in Game 1. You knew that was going to be the case, though, given the fact of how bad they played in Game 1, coming off that 7-game series. Jalen Brunson hit some... I mean, look, it's a similar formula for what we've seen from the Knicks, really, during the Jalen Brunson era. A relatively close game, and down the stretch, Jalen Brunson makes plays. Karl Anthony Towns plays well, despite being in foul trouble. Was productive in the few minutes that he was on the floor. Tyrese Maxey plays well, but that's just not enough. And now the Sixers find themselves down 2-0 in what feels like an insurmountable hole against a Knicks team that's playing really well.
Yeah, Jason, I will say last night's game did make me a little more fearful about the Knicks than anything, just because you're playing the Sixers without Joel Embiid. You should win by more than 6 points, pretty simply. Especially coming off of that game one where, like you said, they looked so good, especially off of that round one where they looked so good against a team that should never have even been in the playoffs. Like, oh my gosh, the Atlanta Hawks. Again, said it on the show enough times. Don't get me started on it again, but the Atlanta Hawks, what are you doing? Yeah, I was surprised by New York. I thought that they would really step on the throats of Philadelphia in this game. I thought that, a guy like Cat would absolutely eat with the news that Andre Drummond would be getting the majority of the minutes at the 5 over Joel Embiid. I was surprised. I thought this was going to be much more similar to game one. I thought this game was going to be more like the Spurs Timberwolves game we saw later in the night, Jason. I thought New York was going to, I didn't think Philadelphia was going to have a snowball's chance in what in this game. And credit to them for making it close down the stretch. They did play well. They are playing better. You mentioned it. No one expected them to win game one. Scheduled loss, 100%. I think that, Joel Embiid playing the 20 whatever minutes he did in game one is probably what caused him to miss game two. If I'm a Philly fan, though, the only hope that I'm bringing out of this is, well, you're finally going to get a rested Joel Embiid. And you saw how dangerous that was in the Celtics series when Joel Embiid can get back to 100%, get fully rested. And if missing one game two is what it takes to get there and give them a shot in this series, I'm fine with that if I'm a Philly fan. I am actually not egregiously mad at Joel Embiid missing last night's game two.
It's total, I don't want to say revisionist history, but it is 2020 looking in the rearview mirror. Should they have even played the way he came out of game 7 late? I think it is very fair to ask whether or not they should have even played him in game 1. And then you would have had him for game 2 when the team was a little more refreshed, a little more rested. You kind of say, look, we're going to have to take our lumps in game 1, but we'll have him out there. And he played actually pretty well in game 1. He was getting up and down the floor. But the bottom line is they needed him more in this game 2 situation when you kind of figure you're probably going to lose game 1, which they wound up losing. So we'll see obviously what happens. But the Knicks continue to play well now. 5 straight wins in this postseason for New York. And again, the only team playing as well as they are is Oklahoma City, who are the juggernauts out there in the West. All right, T-Wolves and Spurs. You could see this one coming a mile away. Because this, Doris Burke, people love to bang on Doris Burke, but she said something last night as Dave Pasch was whining about how big of a blowout it was and getting pissed off about Minnesota playing so badly in game 2. Clearly, he doesn't watch the Timberwolves, because if he did, he'd know that the only consistent thing, and Doris Burke said this exactly this way, so I'm stealing it from her. The only consistent thing about the T-Wolves is their inconsistency over the last 3 years, that they will throw in a dud like this. But it is fair to point out, if you want to talk about the T-Wolves as a potential championship team, tell me the last time you saw championship teams lose by 40 points in the playoffs. It just doesn't happen. Now, it is part of their DNA, and we could go back over the last couple of years, and they will throw up clunkers like this in the playoffs. But to be that flat, that bad for 48 minutes last night, give nothing in the way of a chance. Again, talk about being able to put your foot on the throat of a young Spurs team, Sam. They just didn't do it. There just wasn't that want last night.
Yeah, investigate Chris Finch. Absolutely, investigate Chris Finch. I'll get to that in a second. First of all, told you after game 1, there was no way that Victor Wembanyama was going to do what he did in game 1 from a shooting perspective, again in the series probably. And he came out and didn't. You see the result, right? All it takes is a very little bit from Wemby, and that offense really, really, really got going last night, as you saw. To my investigate Chris Finch point, I legitimately think he should be on the hot seat solely because of game 2 of the Western Conference semis, which is a crazy thing to say. But Chris Finch, when your star player, when your arguably face of the league contention player, right, is dealing with an injury in the playoffs, so much so that you rested him significantly in game 1, and your team is down by gosh, darn near 20 points at halftime. There is no reason for that star player, who's coming off the bench in the game, by the way, for them to play 25 minutes in the game. It is malpractice from a coaching perspective. Anthony Edwards had the 4th most minutes of any Timberwolves last night. That is bad coaching. I'm sorry, there is nothing other to say about it than that is bad coaching. Chris Finch, if your team loses this series, it's officially on you, my friend.
Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they came into game one, I think double-digit underdogs against San Antonio, and they stole game one. They did what they came into San Antonio to do, which was get one of those first 2 games. So I'm not going to crush Chris Finch as bad as you are. I actually was having a conversation with our friend Kurt Heelan yesterday about how I believe he's actually one of the best coaches in the league if you look at what he does year in and year out with the talent on that team.
Yeah, but that's just not what you do with a superstar in the playoffs. Good coaches do not play injured superstars for 25 minutes in the playoffs in a blowout.
It was weird. But to their defense, what I will say is they know his condition better than we do. They know how bad that knee is better than we do. And for him to be out there, they've got to believe that he can be. All right, we're going to come back. Patrick McEnroe joins us next. Welcome back to the show. Do some hockey a little later on. Odds and ends still to come. Sam will be back for that. Let's bring in our friend Patrick McEnroe, who I've wanted to talk to for a few days. Wrote an interesting op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. And I'm just curious, like, where did this come from? Like, it was just kind of out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you were talking about this issue of NIL in college, how it's impacting tennis, the influx of international players. I don't want to say taking opportunities away from American players, because it's not like they're intentionally doing it, but they're being courted by these universities. So first of all, tell me, what was the impetus for you to write this piece?
So it's about 2.5 weeks ago, Jason, on a Sunday, and I'd finished my little morning workout, and I was came down to my basement where I am now with my TVs in the other room, and I knew the Knicks game was coming up. It was the Knicks-Hawks. I think the Knicks were down 2-1 at that point, so I was fired up for that. And anyway, it wasn't coming on for like an hour, so I'm just shooting around, and I see college tennis on ESPN SEC network. So I said, well, this is unusual. There's rarely college tennis on. So I turn it on. It happened to be the SEC men's championship match between Texas, who's the #1 team in the country, and Mississippi State. My good friends Sam Gore and Luke Jensen are the commentators, so I'm watching for a couple of games. They do the doubles first. It's how they do it in college tennis. So there's 6 players per team, 3 matches going on. So I just text the guys, I know they're calling the match. Great, I'm watching the match. I said, just for my own interest, because I'm looking at the names of the players. And by the way, this has been an ongoing issue in tennis for 25 years. So, everybody's, attacking me from all angles. Oh, PMAC, you're a little late to the party. It's like, no, I'm just watching the match. There's 12 players on the court. I said, guys, how many, just for my interest, are American? And they text me back, LOL, 1. I said, okay. So then I just put a tweet. I just said, I'm sitting here watching the SEC final between Mississippi State and Texas. There's 12 players on the court. There's 1 American. That's all I said. Literally, that was my post. And the thing just started to explode. Okay. Then some guy who's, very inside college tennis told me what an idiot I am. And if I'm going to spout off on this topic, I should do my homework. And I should realize that there are not 1 American on the court. And there was 2. There was one other guy who had a very Spanish-sounding name, but it turned out he was from Florida. So then I go to the ACC final, Jason, that was between UVA, Virginia, and Wake Forest, 2 tennis powerhouses in men's tennis for the last, decade or so. Wake won it last year. By the way, you know what the average age of the Wake team starting lineup was last year?
What was it?
Higher than the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like mid-20s.
Wow.
I'm like, wait. So anyway, in that match, there was 1 player that was American out of 12. So 24 players in 4 of the biggest teams in the country and 3 Americans on the court. Okay. Now, as I said, This has been ongoing for a while. I started when I saw this groundswell on my social media, I started hearing from a lot of people, within college tennis. Obviously, I played college tennis many years ago. I love college tennis, what it gave to me. I wasn't locked to be a pro, Jason. So college for me was like another stepping stone to maybe get to the pros. We're losing those opportunities for American kids. Maybe not the elite kids like Ben Shelton and Emma Navarro and Peyton Stearns that make it to the pro game at a high level. But for the average, player that can play D1 or, maybe play even D3 schools, you're seeing tons of international players. So that's when the idea came to me to write this op-ed, because I was hearing from so many people. And I pitched it to the Wall Street Journal. I went back and forth to them for about a week. And that's when, I published the article. And then the 2 days before, Jason, I was about to publish the article, the University of Arkansas, SEC team announces that they're dropping men's and women's tennis from their program. So sirens went up all around the tennis world. And this is connected to overall what's happening in football and basketball with the NIL, with the transfer portal. So universities are looking, how are we going to pay these players more? Because it's basically become professional sports. And are we going to have to start taking away from the quote unquote Olympic sports, tennis, swimming, volleyball, beach volleyball, track and field? The numbers are going up, Jason, in all those sports of international athletes coming in, but they're way highest in the world of tennis, well over 60%.
What will provide the incentive for college programs to bring in more American players if that is something obviously that concerns you? What would provide that incentive?
Well, what would provide it is that there are hard rules about how many internationals you could have on your team. I believe that is the direction that we need to go after much. Of course, you could say, hey, if you keep players on your team for longer, if you get American players, maybe you get some sort of bonus from the university. The reality is that's probably not going to happen. But there's so many ways that they get around these international players, the age limits, the eligibility limits. You have many of the pros. The reason why the Wake Forest starting lineup averages like in the mid-20s is because they've already played pro tennis, Jason. It's like if you played AAA ball for 2 or 3 years as a baseball player, and then you say, well, I'm pretty good, I'm really good, but I'm probably not going to make the majors. So I could go to college, and I could actually make money. And even though tennis players are not making the money that they make in football and basketball, but they're making some money, at the top universities to come and play tennis. And then they get great competition, great coaches. There's a ton of great coaches, great facilities. And that way they can use that for a few years and to maybe have a chance at some point to get back on the pro tour, like Vachereau, the kid from Monaco. There's players from Europe that are now, solid professionals on the tour. Or if that doesn't work out, you got a free education, just like the reasons I want to see more American kids get the chance. Not because it's necessarily a pathway to the pros, but it's a great experience to go and play a college sport that you've dedicated your life to and get an education at the same time. Because of the way the system is going, we're losing that possibility, I think, for a lot of American kids.
Patrick McEnroe wrote this great op-ed over in the Wall Street Journal. I actually was checking it out while I was on my cruise.
You were supposed to be on vacation, but every time I look down, you're sending messages out. I'm like, Jason, hello. I thought you were on vacation.
I don't do the vacation thing very well because I love what I do. So he wrote this great op-ed. Go and check it out. We'll link to it also on the YouTube version of the show so people can see it there and on my social media as well. You can find it on Patrick's social media too. I want to bring him back for one more segment because I want to get into this interesting story about the French Open, which you'll be doing for TNT coming up here. This interesting story about players potentially boycotting, feeling like they're not getting a big enough piece of the pie. We'll do that with Patrick McEnroe when we continue. Welcome back. Patrick McEnroe hanging out with us for a couple of segments on the show today. ESPN and TNT tennis commentator, president of the International Tennis Hall of Fame. Weekend mornings, Saturday mornings over on
Sirius
Mad Dog
XM.
Radio.
Yep.
Catch them there as well.
Don't forget running the John McEnroe Tennis Academy here in New York City.
You don't have enough to do.
Got my brothers back. We work together there. We love it. great. Trying to help kids, by the way. And that's part of the issue why I got involved in this, because I see these kids. I have so many parents that come up to me at the academy. Hey, Mike, if the carrot of college tennis wasn't there for my kid, they wouldn't keep playing. They wouldn't, because you have to dedicate so much. That to me is the crux of this issue and why I've gotten involved in the last couple of weeks.
I have to get your thoughts on this because I held back talking about it all week because I wanted to see what you had to say about it. Especially in this era of, you had golfers on the PGA Tour that were unhappy with the way that was, with the way they were treated by PGA Tour, so they decided to go play LIV. Now LIV is breaking down and all this stuff. And now you've got this story about some of the top players in tennis talking about potentially boycotting the French Open at Roland Garros because they feel like the revenue coming in is not being divvied up well enough to the players' liking. That's the gist of what I get from the French Open. Do I have this right? And where is this coming from?
There's not a gist. It's 100% right. Like that, the revenues of, the prize money in the majors has gone up exponentially, and it's bigger in the majors than it is on any other tournament. So the ATP Tour, WTA Tour, that's always their go-to argument at the majors, right? We pay the players the most. The numbers go up every year. Yeah, that's true. But guess what also goes up? Their revenues are going up. And since COVID broke, okay, like in the last 3-4 years, the revenues at the majors, Paris, Wimbledon, U.S. Open, Australia, have skyrocketed. Okay, so it's not the overall number; it's the percentage. You know what percentage tennis players get of the revenues, right?
I don't know the exact number. No,
it's about 13-14%. Wow. Okay, now we know in the team sports it's around 50% for most of them. Now it's different; it's collectively bargained. They have a union. The tennis, it doesn't have that. Tennis is splintered all over the world, so we get all that. Tennis players aren't saying we should get 50% of the pie because that would put the USTA out of business, right? The USTA and the All England Club and the Federation in France and Australia use much of their revenues to support the sport in the country, in addition to the facilities, paying the players, prize money, et cetera, et cetera. But it needs to be more for the players when you look at the overall numbers. If maybe it ends up being in the 20 percentile, which would be a significant boost. And by the way, the top players, it doesn't really affect them as much. It's more the players like me, guys that were 28 in the world, guys that were 20 to 50, 100 in the world. That these tournaments, of course, the big names sell the tickets. But when people come to these big tennis, they're out watching all the matches and they're watching all these other players that, aren't big name players. So that's where the money, I think, needs to be distributed more evenly. So the players, but this is never going to happen. They will never get there, Jason, unless they boycott. That's just the bottom line.
Okay, so wait a second. Could this happen?
It could happen. It could happen. I don't think it will, because I think the majors will give. And I think they'll do what everybody, you have to do in a situation like this. Negotiate. Come up with a, reasonable number, a solid increase.
French Open is in like 3 weeks.
Well, it won't be that quick. It would be, later this year. It could be next year. The reality is they because each major is separate, right?
Right.
So they're just trying to protect their own, whats, each tournament. So I'm not going to say they don't care about the other ones. Of course they care, but their number one thing is, make sure the players show up. But if the players really want to make significant change, they should say, we're not playing the rest of the year in the majors. I mean, that's how they get real change and actually stick with it. But tennis the players have never been able to do that because they're splintered. They've got their own teams. They've got their own agents. They come from different parts of the world. It's not a league like it is everywhere else in the world where you can control the players in a certain way. Tennis has never had that.
You and I did this exercise once before. We looked at the top 100, tennis players, how much money they make in a year, and how much golfers make in a year. And it was staggering. I remember we did this a few years back on one of the shows I was hosting.
Yeah.
And we had talked about this. I mean, this is something that's been, as you said, an issue for a long time. Is this the thing that could unify players? Because you're talking about as a group, as a collective, they have a hard time doing this from the top to the bottom. Is this that thing that can ultimately bring them together?
It definitely could, and I think if enough of them now are vocal about it, particularly the top players, they could see some more movement. And again, I don't think anybody wants to see the players boycott. I mean, certainly the majors don't. The players don't. They still make the most money they make in the majors, so there is that. So they each have some negotiating power here, right? But they got to come to an agreement where the numbers here's what the majors do, Jason. They raise the prize money just enough so that the players won't revolt. Just enough. So when you actually look at the numbers, which the players have started to do, wait a second, I'm making it up. You pulled in $300 million last year, and now it's $550 million. I don't have the number in front of me. And you're giving us a 3% raise. Maybe it should be like 7-8%. Maybe it should be 20%. Well, maybe we could meet in the middle, somewhere. So I think that that's what's going to happen. I'm glad to see the players, starting to come together a little bit more, because I think the majors can afford it. They're trying to find more ways to keep making money. Mm-hmm. That's fine. God bless them. That's their absolute right to do that. And the ticket prices keep going up. They're putting in more luxury boxes at the U.S. Open as we speak right now, renovating the stadium to do just that. And if people will pay for it, companies will pay for it, good. That's good for the sport, good for good for tennis, and it should be good for the players too. Really good for the players.
Patrick McEnroe, ESPN, TNT. You'll see him at the French Open in a couple of weeks as well. Always appreciate you, my friend. Check out his work at the Wall Street Journal in that column as well. Thanks, friend. One of the reasons I have Sam on the show, among the myriad reasons that I have Sam on the show. Now he thinks something bad is coming. See, he's literally like girding his loins right now. He's literally like steeling himself because he thinks the kick to the nads is coming. That's not what this is at all, Sam Yarnell. Not what it is at all. One of the reasons we have Sam Yarnell on the show is because he compliments me. And I don't mean in terms of like says nice things about me, but he's the yin to my yang sometimes. And on a night like last night where the Knicks are playing against the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, and the Yankees are, trying to win like their 7,000th game in a row, which they didn't, by the way. They lost to the Rangers 6-1. On nights like that, I can't possibly watch everything. It's just not possible for Jason Page to watch everything. Anybody who acts or tells you like they do and talks about games like they do is lying to you. And I refuse to do that. So last night, Game 1, Eastern Conference semifinals, Stanley Cup playoffs, you got the Sabres and the Canadiens playing. I'm saying, there's no way I could possibly watch this game on Wednesday night. So that's why I have Sam Yarnell here, to talk about how the Sabres beat the Canadiens last night in Game 1. I do know their power play finally woke up for the first time in this postseason, Sam. But hey, hats off. Buffalo getting a playoff win in the conference semifinals.
Yeah, Jason, it was a big one last night for
sure
the Sabres.
Was.
And
what
a
game
where, we were talking in the NBA segment about stepping on throats. Sabres did about as close as you can to stepping on the Canadiens' throats with a skate blade in Game 1. That was a wire-to-wire domination. I think the Sabres scored their first goal like 4.5 minutes into the game. They never trailed. There were 4.5 minutes where the game was tied. The Sabres were never tied or trailing after that point. It was complete and utter domination. I think that we talk so much, people in the hockey community talk so much before this series about, how is Buffalo going to handle the Suzuki line? It really is one of the best in hockey.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. That's been on my mind for days, was how Buffalo was going to handle the Suzuki line. Man, guilty.
I think the thing that people didn't think enough about going into this series was the goaltending. And again, you got the Buffalo Sabres riding Alex Lyon, and this is a guy who's been there, done that all before. And when you look up and down the Buffalo Sabres roster, they've got guys at every level who have been there and done that before, right? Ryan McLeod, who played an incredible game last night, was there with the Oilers through all the pain and everything they went through year in and year out in the Stanley Cup playoffs up in Edmonton. You have Bowen Byram, who's got his name on the Stanley Cup, who played incredibly in the Stanley Cup finals for Colorado. And then you've got Alex Lyon, who's got tons and tons of playoff experience with a dynastic style team in the Florida Panthers down in Florida. I really am growing in confidence towards these Buffalo Sabres the more and more games we watch, Jason. But the story of the night last night in the National Hockey League had to be the Anaheim Ducks going into your hometown where you broadcast the show from and absolutely stealing a game from the Las Vegas Golden Knights.
That is true. And, hats off to the Sabres. They get a game 1 win. But I did catch some of that Golden Knights game because the Spurs game was a blowout. So I was able to flip over and watch the Golden Knights.
Thanks, Adam Silver.
And the Ducks go at it. And look, I mean, the reality is Anaheim has to feel sky high going home to take on the Golden Knights in Game 3 because they have to feel like they could be up 2-0 in this series. If you look at the way Game 1 ended, the questionable non-icing call that could have been an icing call, I mean, they were right there in Game 1. And last night, I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. What, 5 penalties in the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the game for the Golden Knights, and Anaheim able to take advantage. They get the win last night, a late empty netter to make it 3-0, and then the Golden Knights get one with about 5 seconds left that was rather meaningless. The first time that I've watched the Golden Knights here over the last few weeks where you're like, uh-oh, there's still a little bit of a problem here. But hats off to Anaheim, Sam. That is a huge win for that team. And look, John Tortorella is going to have to regroup with this team as they go to Game 3 in Anaheim.
I'm so glad you brought up John Tortorella because watching this game last night, and it actually wasn't until the post-game show that I had this thought. By the way, NHL on TNT's post-game show has to be, with the way that ESPN is completely different kind of subject here that we get into normally in its own segment. But the NHL on TNT's post-game show, head and shoulders above any other post-game show in professional sports right now. ESPN freaking nuked the Kenny and Shaq show, and every other pregame, postgame show for football just absolutely isn't good. What I will say about Vegas, and I had this thought during the postgame show last night, I'm starting to think something weird is going on in Las Vegas. And you didn't think it because they were playing well enough on the ice through the last, really month and a half of hockey. But I'm starting to think there was more behind the Butch Cassidy firing than we were ever led to know. And it's hockey, right? And you bring in John Tortorella. That's a great way to be able to sweep whatever happened right under the rug. I'm starting to think that there's something fishy going on in the Vegas front office that's bleeding into the locker room, got Butch fired. They brought in Torts to just try to get through the playoff run, and now you're seeing it with the players on the ice. We'll find out about it more in the offseason, but I wouldn't be surprised if something weird's going on in Vegas.
You're thinking of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, of course. Bruce Cassidy was the head coach. That's okay. Bruce will forgive you. As he sits in the broadcast booth now. We're coming back. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Tomorrow on the show, Robert Littall, the founder of Black Sports Online, joins us for his usual visit with Sam off on Fridays. Tino Patino will be here to preview NASCAR. Watkins Glen. Hey, it's a road course. Who do you think's going to win? Let's just put it in the win column for Shane Van Gisbergen now. I'll kick you in the nuts. We'll call it a day. A couple of reminders before we go. Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Monday through Friday, TV version of the show, available in its audio form, the way God intended it. Check that out. Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, and a whole bunch more. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel is the place to find all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show, 45 minutes, commercial-free, waiting there for you like a good friend. Early each afternoon, go and subscribe today. It is fantastic. Extended conversations. We had one yesterday with our friend David Aardsma, the former big league reliever and closer. He apparently had a lot to get off his chest about Trevor Bauer, and he did during the commercial break, but we were still rolling on it. And if you check out our Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, you'll see everything he had to say about the idea of Trevor Bauer pitching in Major League Baseball again. You will certainly want to check that out. Sam Yarnell, you had a strange facial reaction to that. I wanted to make sure you're okay.
No, I just think I can probably deduce where some of David's opinions came from. That's all.
Fair enough. So go and check that out. It's on the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel.
I agree with them, just for the record. I think David had a very apt breakdown.
There you go. Sports Wrap Shorts also available there. About as apt, about as spot on an opinion as I could about the Buffalo Sabres game. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel also has Sports Wrap Shorts. Go and check those out. 1 to 3 minute long vertical videos made for people on the go. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today. Without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, on this Thursday, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Russell Wilson weighing being the Jets' backup quarterback and taking on a role in television, probably with CBS, replacing Matt Ryan on their pregame show. This to me feels like, hey, cut off my pinky toe or cut off my pinky finger, because quite frankly, he's not a very good quarterback anymore. He's not a very genuine personality. He comes across as very fake, very canned. I think either way it's a losing proposition for him, but if you made me choose one for Russell Wilson, it's the Jets. I mean, really, you might play a few games because they're so sucktastic, but at the end of the day, it's the Jets. Just go, if you're going to get into the broadcast booth, just get into the broadcast booth and call it a day. But I think he's going to be terrible in that role.
So a couple of things. First of all, when I think Russell Wilson, things that I don't think personable, warm, inviting. That's exactly what you don't want to put on TV. I'm actually very surprised, and I guess like name recognition brings people to the broadcast, but I'm very surprised from a media sense that they actually offered him, of all the potential backup quarterbacks out there, a contract. I think that there are a few different guys who would do a much better role and probably bring you the same media presence, right? Bring you that same name notoriety. So CBS, if you want me to work in the front office over there, I am open, man. You can find all my information over at my website.
There you go.
But I'll say this on the Jets thing. This is so classically, Jason, a human being, because that's what all these football players are, who has spent way too much time in the under the care, within the hammock of the benefits of the NFL Players Association, who does not understand what being a human being outside of the NFL Players Association necessarily means and all the responsibilities that come with it. Russell Wilson, you may be making the same amount of money, my friend. I guarantee you there are much fewer people who are going to help you with that money as a private citizen as opposed to a member of the NFL Players Association. Also, you're not going to be staying at 5-star hotels everywhere you travel as a member of the CBS broadcast team as opposed to a member of the New York Jets organization. It shouldn't be a hard decision.
By as early as today, the NCAA can make the decision to expand to 76 teams from the field of 68 right now for the NCAA men's basketball tournament, Sam Yarnell. So this means Bruce Pearl will be able to complain next year about his son's team being the 77th best team in the country and not being one of the 8 additional at-large bids that get into the NCAA tournament. By the way, Bruce Pearl, you're a fraud. Go ahead, Sam.
You know, If you listen, if you're real quiet right now and you listen really closely, you can hear boom, 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 boom. That's my blood boiling inside my body at the idea of this. I mean, I spoke a little bit about it on the show, either earlier this week or late last week. I can't remember. This is going into destroying basketball. That's pretty much all it is. You're going to destroy basketball. And I mean, the NBA is right there. They're holding hands, walking down the destroying basketball sidewalk together.
We'll be at 128 before you know it. Everybody gets invited. You get an invitation. You get an invitation. You get an invitation. Sam Yarnell gets an invitation. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Patrick McEnroe. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to all of you at home for tolerating us for the last 60 minutes. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here for a Friday Sports Wrap. Till then, bye-bye.